So first of all, thank you all for showing up. We are expanding our audience in here from an age perspective. So the youngest one today is 3 months old. And he promised to be quiet and ask questions only in English, so it's fine. So there is a change, a little bit of a change. There was a request for people to mingle and meet one another. So what we're going to do is, before the break, we have a half an hour break in the middle. We will have 3 people introduce themselves for a minute or 2 minutes short. So those of you who want to come and present for a minute or 2 minutes, 3 people. So at the end I will ask who wants to come, and those of you who want, just raise your hands, and we'll pick the first 3 that will raise their hands. Okay, and we will have a little bit of mingling afterwards. So we are very fortunate to be in lecture number 6. We covered already a lot of ground, and we're going to continue building the methodology and all the concepts of how you build successful companies. So again, what is the SmartUp Academy? This is a program to teach the profession, and I've said it many, many times, that building a company is a profession. There is a lot of stuff that somebody needs to know when they build a company, and I've tried to organize it in a way that can be described and can make sense. And with that, we build successful companies, and we have a definition. What is a successful company? So a successful company has 3 elements. Number 1, it is profitable. A company is not grown up until it generates cash, months after months after months. If it's not generating cash, it relies on investors. And investors have the tendency to be when you don't need them, and not be when you need them. So, right, those of you with experience can attest to the validity of this statement. So when you are making money, you don't have to worry about it. You are making money by yourself. And the best investors ever called customers. Second, if you build the company correctly, you can grow really fast. We talk about it a lot. Ideas like branding first and other ideas on how to do that. And the last element is that all of that can be done with modest investment. If you build the company correctly, you don't need a lot of money. What does it mean, not a lot of money? Ranges from a few $100,000, 2, 3, maybe $4 million. That's about what is needed to build a successful company, if it is built correctly. We also have workshops in here, so a lot of these ideas I talk in very general terms. Essentially, each company has its own unique problems or challenges. So we also have a program where a small number of companies can sit around the table and we discuss their specific needs. Obviously, if we talk about branding or marketing, then all the companies participate in talking about branding and marketing. If we talk about cash flow, then all of them talk about cash flow. And the end is the residency program. The reason I put in here the picture from hospital is obvious. Student finish 6 years in medical school, high degrees, right, on the dean's list, and nobody will dare go to their doctor until they spend 4 or 5 years in the hospital, because clearly what you learn in school and reality are just not the same. So what we're doing here is not very different. I can tell you everything you want to hear, and I can explain it and give examples and give homeworks. When it comes to your own company, it just looks different. Because every company is unique. It's not the same, and you are going to do exactly what I said not to do. Why? Because that's the way we all work. So we have a residency program. We sit with these companies that are in the program for once a week, once every 2-3 weeks, depending on the situation, and go over all the operations of the company, the strategy. Again, this is just to remind people what we talked before about moving from science to business. I've talked about Galileo Galilei that says mathematics is the language in which the universe is written. which means at the end of the day, everything has to be written in equations and in numbers. If they don't, then you can't make decisions, you can't predict, you can't do anything. And the language of business is very, very simple. And to deal with money, we build spreadsheets. We spend about one lecture for full and another part of a lecture to show how we build this model. Very, very important. We're going to renew it from time to time in the following lectures and show how everything that we talk about is reflected in those spreadsheets and how we analyze it. So we have successful companies in the 3 pillars of successful companies. How do we measure them? Okay, so how do we measure profitability? The measure that we put into this model is how long does it take for the company to become profitable. When I say profitable, I mean cash generating, not P&L, but cash generating month after month. So it takes you 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 3 years, 10 years. That's the measure of profitability that we put in place. Modest investment, how much money do you need before you can turn profitable? And last but not least, fast growing. The way we calculate fast growing is to think about this as an investment. So if you invest in real estate and you put $2 million in real estate, you ask yourself, when am I going to get my money back? Right? So you want your money back. Same should be with all when you build a company. If your family puts $500,000 in you, they want it back. And they want it back fast. So that's a good measure of how successful your company is. So these are the 3 measurements. This is how we calculate them. So every time you build a very complicated spreadsheet with a lot of assumptions and everything, at the end you calculate just 3 numbers. How long it took you to become profitable, how much money you had to put in the business till you reach profitability, and how long does it take you to return the investment. 3 numbers, that's all, from all your entire spreadsheet. And that would allow you to compare assumptions. Well, if the price is $2,000 versus $1,000, what difference does that here? If I charge, as I showed before, $12,000 a year upfront or $1,000 a month, it's a huge difference in the amount of money you need. Huge difference. So assumptions like that should be calculated. In simple terms, business model is basically that. Okay? How is your company going to make money? At the end of the day, people say, well, we want to do something disruptive, we want to change the world, blah, 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 blah. Okay, do that on your own time in the weekend. When you build a company and people give you money, they want money. It's that simple. When you build a company and you don't have a rich father, you need the company to make money or else your wife might be angry. So it's really, really simple. Okay? But building a company is a very complex combination of parameters. Product, the service, customer profile, pricing, gazillion things that need to be taken into account. And that's what we're doing here in the lecture. We basically slice each aspect of how you build a company, analyze it, give you some principles, and show you what works and what doesn't work. Really critical. Company gets its DNA very early. And the DNA is obviously the DNA of the founder, but also the DNA of the business model that you choose at the beginning. Doing a pivot 2 years later is extremely expensive and complicated. So you better think a lot about the business model, do a lot of tests and trials and learning and stuff before you make those decisions, because they are very costly if you make a mistake, and you can test them. Now we'll show how you can test them. And it's usually an iterative process. So you make some decision, you go and you test them in the market. When I say test them in the market, it's test them with potential customers or customers, right? Because at the end of the day, all you want is a lot of money from your customers. So it's very easy to see. If I charge this, do I get? If I package it this way, do I get more customers or less customers? So what do you need to know when you build a business model. So you really want to answer all the WH questions in this. So the first question is, who are your users? And the second question is, which is what we're going to talk about today, is what problems users try to solve. The language that is used in this presentation today is jobs to be done. I'll explain later on who coined the term and how it evolved. But really, this is the main thing that we're going to discuss in this video. Jobs to be done, which basically means what's the problem you're trying to solve? Really, to the customers. And even though it sounds like a pretty simple question, as you will see, this is a fairly complicated question of what problems are you trying to solve. Who pays for it? Really critical. And when I say who pays for it, you will realize later on in one of my lectures that actually there are a lot of models of who pays for it, and it might even be as subtle as the employee enjoys, the company pays. It's a very different behavior than the company pays, the company enjoys. So there are a lot of differences. What exactly do they pay for? So pretty much in a lot of products, you can parse it in different ways. The most obvious one is the coffee machine over there. The coffee machine costs very little money, but the capsules cost a lot of money. Right? So what do you pay for? You could have said, the machine itself is very expensive and the capsules are cheap. You reverse it. We all know that there are all of these business models where they pull you in with cheap prices and you pay the cost later on. Where do they pay? It sounds stupid. Well, the question is really, do they pay on the web without you? Go click a button and pay with a credit card? Or do they talk to a salesperson? Do they do wire transfer? All of these things have a big impact on your ability to sell and how you sell. How much do they pay? Obviously, when do they pay? As I said before, $12,000 upfront or $1,000 a month. Do they pay before they get the product? Do they pay at 60, at 90? All of these questions have huge, huge impact on your cash flow and therefore on your profitability and so forth and so on. Okay. So I promised you that this time I'm going to talk about somebody else, not just me. So it's Clayton Christensen. I introduced him last time, sorry. He was a professor at Harvard Business School. Before that, he was a businessman. He built a company. Then he decided he wanted to do more. He did his PhD at Harvard, and then he became a professor. And he did some very interesting research on why good companies that are very successful fail many, many times when a new technology or a new process comes on board, and they let competitors take the market away from them. And his main insight was they're not idiots, right? They didn't build a company worth billions of dollars by being idiots. So they are not idiots. They see the threat. They see what's going on in the market, and somehow, stupidly, supposedly, they don't react correctly. They don't do anything about it. Why? What's going on? And his conclusion, which is very, very interesting, I'll not talk about it this time, but maybe in the next lecture. His insight was that they do what they are supposed to do, which is increase profits. So what happens is that as competitors come in, they move upstream to more, to products with a higher margin. And they kind of drop down the products that don't have a high margin. They just needed to deal with it because customers wanted it. So if a competitor comes in at the low end of the market, they're very happily shed off these product lines, leave them for the competitions, and then the competition from below basically eat up their business. Yeah. It's a little bit more elaborate. I will talk about it next time on fall. The reason I put all the videos in here is there are plenty of videos on the web. I strongly recommend to watch them. He's also funny. So it's kind of British, so he has British jokes. But he's very, very funny and very intriguing. Spend some time with him. So the book I'm going to talk about is called The Innovator's Solution because the previous book was called The Innovator's Dilemma. So if you have a dilemma, this is the solution. And what he's talking about is the following. It has the book in Hebrew. I found that it is in Hebrew. I don't know that you can really find it, but there is the book in Hebrew. And this is what it says. Understanding customers do not drive innovation success. Understanding customer jobs does. So this entire concept, and we will talk about it in great length later on, is that really this concept that you need to understand what the customer needs is wrong. You have to look at what are they trying to accomplish, analyze it, and then build your products to deal with the root cause, not when they say, oh yeah, I like this product. Okay, so I decided that this time I will confess to all my sins and tell you stories from two of my companies and how I experienced these jobs to be done firsthand. Because I didn't know that it's called jobs to be done. It was just painful. But I learned the hard way, so I understand what he's talking about. So the company that's the second company I built. It was founded in 1984. And we had investors that are legendary for those of you who are beyond 20 years old. The first one was Ziad Galib, who created Aeron. Aeron was the parent of Elbit. So Elbit is two words, Elron and Bitachon. Became Elbit, so it was a joint venture between Aeron and the Ministry of Defense. Athena Ventures, then he worked with us with Dan Tolkovsky. Dan Tolkovsky was the
piloting.
He was the head of Tel Aviv many years ago. Then he was the CEO of Discount Ashkaot. And then he started a venture capital, the first venture capital in Israel called Athena Ventures, and the first fund was $40 million. And we were very fortunate to be one of the first companies there. But then we raised a lot of money, about $12 million. Because. So what's the product? At the time, we're talking now about 84, there was also AI. So AI came in waves. For those of you who are old enough, have seen it come and go, come and go. I have to say that this time the AI was for real, all the other times it was not for real. And this one is really for real. And at the time it was called expert systems. Expert system is essentially a set of if-then rules. If you see this, then do this. If you see this, then do that. Basically, it's just a list of rules, the same way that you describe to a kid what to do or to a pupil what to do, that's the way you describe it to the computer. You just give a list of rules on how to do it. The systems were a little bit more sophisticated, so it wasn't, the sequence was not important, it was more interesting. But the idea that we had was, there are companies, and I'll give you the list here. Our customers were companies like Xerox, Philips Medical, Applied Materials, Variant, Amnesty. Those of you who recognize these are about the last three are companies that deal with equipment to produce integrated circuits, chips. So they have very sophisticated, complicated equipment. When it fails, the technician has to come in and fix it. Usually the technician has no clue what the machine really does because it's very complicated, so he starts swapping boards. Every board costs about $20,000, $30,000. It's a very expensive process. Just swap boards and sort them back. And also, many times they don't catch the real problem. So what we decided to do is build an expert system where we work with the client, and we take all the knowledge of the best engineers, put it into this expert system, and when a technician goes to the field, they have a tool that gives them guidance and advice how to identify the problem and how to fix it. Really great idea. The interesting thing is, as the condition for getting the funding, the investors did the right thing, which is send us out to the US to meet with potential customers, interview them, write down the summary of the interview, and bring them back, showing that customers are really interested in this solution. So we talked to these companies and others as well. We, I think, went to about 12 companies. And we were very encouraged. People said, this is really great, it's a huge solution for us, it's a really expensive problem. Yes, go ahead and do it. I asked them, will you be my customer? They said, absolutely, sure, yes. Okay. So as part of that, we founded the company in '84. I moved to the US because most of our customers were in the US in '89. And the company continually grew. So by 1992, we brought in $4.5 million in revenues. Nice. There's only one problem, that we were never profitable. So if you think I'm nuts about profitability, this is the reason. When you are not profitable and you have to raise money round after round after round from investors, it's very painful. So one day, I talked to one of our bigger customers. And I asked him a thorny question. Because parallel to us, there was another company that started about the same time. And that company, what they built was just a basic CRM for the field service engineers. So if there was a call, they would put it in the CRM. They put also the inventory of the parts and the other thing. The parts were mainly, the spare parts were usually in the trunk of the car because the customers were all over, so the engineers would go by car. In the trunk, they have a lot of replacement parts. And so they wanted to keep track of where these parts are. And this company started about the same time as us. We were 4.5 million, they were 25. And that really made it. Really. So I went to a customer that I knew, we became friends, and I said, can you explain to me why do you spend so much money on them and so little money on us? So he asked me the following. He said to me the following. When you came to me and you asked, is your product interesting? I said, yeah, very interesting. If you said, when you asked me, are you going to buy my product? I said, yeah, I think so. Yeah, absolutely. Right? So I was as happy as can be. And here's what he said to me. That was not the right question. So I said, what is the right question? So he said, the right question you should have asked me is the following. If you only have $100,000 in your budget, would you buy the product of Roche Intelligent System or would you buy something else? And I said, and he says, why? Why would you buy something else? And he said, very simple. Because in each car of my engineers at the truck, they have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of spare parts. I had no clue where this is. I have $50 million in spare parts where I don't know where it is because it travels around the country. And so I want to know where everything else, and I want to make sure that if somebody needs a spare part and doesn't have it, but somebody who is 10 miles away has it, they can switch it. So it is far more important for me than your nice product. A nice product is a future product, but right now I have real problems right now. Jobs to be done. I asked about the wrong job. If I asked, if you only have that amount of money, what would you buy? Chances are we would have developed something else. Not expensive, not artificial intelligence, not disruptive technology, just stupid CRM that works. That's a very important lesson. Okay, so look, jobs to be done is look at the situation from the customer's perspective, not yours. My perspective was, I'm an engineer, I wasn't sure on my time, I'm not going to deal with CRMs, I want disruptive, blah, blah, blah. Got the answer. I left Roche Intelligent Systems in 1992. I swore to God, the next company I'm going to do will be profitable as fast as possible. Thank God I did. But yes, that's the lesson I learned, as well as ask the right questions. Okay. So, I'll go now to the foundational story. If you listen to Christensen, that's the story he's going to tell. It's a really interesting story. I didn't write anything on the slide because it's a long story. But it's a very, very interesting story. So the guy is already, Christensen is already a well-known author and a well-known consultant, and McDonald's hired them to do something interesting. They sell milkshakes at their stores. And they try to improve or increase the sales of the milkshakes at their stores. And they try to do this, do that, add chocolate, take chocolate, add sugar, take sugar. Nothing makes any difference. And so they said, here we have this very smart guy. Let's have him check it. Okay, so they go to some stores and they sit there from 7 o'clock in the morning till at night, 18 hours a day. And they write down every customer that comes in. At what time did they come? Was it a male, a female, at what age? How were they dressed? What did they do with the milkshake? Did they take it and run away? Did they sit there and drink it at the store? What did they do? Literally, customer by customers in a few stores, just write down like spots. And they discovered some interesting patterns. There were actually 2 very different populations that took the milkshake. One population came in the morning from 7 o'clock in the morning till about 9 in the morning. They were all dressed like me, stupid like me, you know, suit and a tie and whatever. Took the milkshake, paid, and went away. That was it. Took it, went away. Then in the afternoon, there was a different audience, different clientele that came. Usually mothers with kids, after they took them from school, they come, they buy food, they buy milkshake, and they sit with the kid, and they eat the meal and the milkshake. 2 different audiences, 2 different clients. So the following day or 2 days, they decide they're going to track these people and find out what's going on here. So they start with the morning, and when this nice gentleman or lady run out of the store, they say, "You have a moment to talk to me, please?" "Yeah." "Why did you buy the milkshake?" So he had to drink it. "Yeah." "What else? Why did you buy it?" And they said, "What does it do for you?" And they said, "Well, you know, I'm going in the car, I drive to work, so I needed something to keep myself busy and I need something." "And if you didn't have milkshake, what would you do?" "Oh, well, I tried bananas, but, you know, they don't fill you." "And what else?" "So I tried to buy donuts, but, you know, I'm not diet, I think donuts, and it also leaves crumbs on my suit, it's not good." "What else did you try?" Gradually, when they started asking a lot of questions, stupid questions, what happens if you don't have it? What do you do? And so forth. They realized that the job of this milkshake, jobs to do, was, I have now a half an hour commute. I'm not hungry yet, but I know I'm going to be hungry at about 10 o'clock in the morning. So I want to eat something that would fill me up. I don't want something that is not healthy, with full of sugar. And most of all, I only have one hand. That's all that I have. I'm in the car. I'm driving. I have one hand, and I can't get myself with crumbs and slippers. Just can't. And the milkshake is just the perfect solution to all of those criteria. I can have it with one hand. It's kind of healthy, a little bit. and wonderful. Okay. In the afternoon, they called the mothers with the kids. And they said, "Why do you buy the milkshake?" They said, "Because we want a kid to eat something real, and they want something sweet. So we have to buy them this stupid milkshake. It's too big, they spend too much time on it, I'm stuck in here with them, I want to go home already," and they keep sucking the stupid thing, you know, they get this big cup of it. "So what do you want?" He says, "Something a lot smaller, okay, that will, you know, the kids will finish it quickly. A little bit more sugar, but small." Give it to me small. Okay, so they go back to McDonald's and they say, you have to have two different products. The morning breakfast, you add a lot of fruits into it. Just chop fruit, but make it small so that it goes through the straw. Make the straw bigger so that they can have the fruits. And the fruit chunks are important because it makes them feel that this is healthy. Exactly, healthy. Take the sugar down, okay? Make it more filling and more substantive, and make sure that they can take it in and out quickly. So they come in, maybe you'll give them like coupons or something. They can come, pick it up, leave something, and go. Okay, so they're running. They want to get out. In the afternoon, you make a very, very different milkshake. Small, no straw. They need to finish it quickly. A little bit more sugar, and that's it. You can charge whatever you want. So sales grew significantly at McDonald's, and that's the foundational story of jobs to be done. So now you're as smart as I am. Any questions until now? Was it funny? All right. ZoomInfo. I promised you 2 favors. Right? So this is failure number 2. This time I didn't leave the company. Okay. Founded in 2000. Deep AI technology. Wow. The dog knows one trick, so it's it. One trick pony. But this time it was really much deeper. Dealt with language understanding, dealt with a lot of stuff because we had to extract information from the web. And so we needed to understand the structure of website and so on. But this time, I was already 2 companies later, Wash Intelligence Systems, and afterwards was CardScan. I won't talk about CardScan now. And so profitability was number 1. And so we started selling, the company was started in 2000, we started selling at the end of 2001. The product was crummy, it didn't work, but I need money. So you sell what you have. And the question was, of course, what do you sell? I'll get to it in a moment. Million in 2002, 3 million in 2003, we became profitable towards the end of the year, and 6 million in 2004, and the company continues growing until it hit the wall. The group is quite hit the wall. Okay, so profitability first. The market for ZoomInfo was recruited. By the way, at the time it wasn't called ZoomInfo, it was called Arrow. Don't ask me why, it's a long story. But in 2000, by 2004, it was called ZoomInfo. And that name remained even though it was bought by Discover in 2019, and then they adopted ZoomInfo because we had a much stronger brand and much better products. So we sold to recruiters, headhunters, and HR companies. I remember I told you that the product was crummy. Let me explain what these people needed and why the crummy product was good enough for them. So what they did, let's talk about headhunters. The client comes in and says, I need a CFO for about $50 million software company, so I want somebody with experience in software in the Boston area. Find me a good candidate. We're talking now about the year 2000, 2001, 2003. No LinkedIn, no data like that. So how do you build a list of the software companies in the Boston area, $50 million and up, and their CFOs? You stop. That's it. So you start calling your friends, you start building your network. That's what makes you great, right? I'm connected, I know everybody. No, you don't. Doesn't matter. That's what you say. Comes ZoomInfo and says, I can give you the list. Here's the list. Here are the software companies in Boston. Here's our estimate for sales. And here's the list of their CFOs. Done. Bang. And they took it and they paid $1,000 a month. That was our charge at the time. And they were very happy. They were excited. You see, our revenue is growing. They kept growing, but really nice. But big eyes, we said, wait a minute. The market of executive recruiters and headhunters is just not big enough. There's a huge market right around the corner for me called data for sales and marketing. Right? Salespeople needed a lot more data. So they were paid a lot of money, and great. So we started selling to salespeople. And they were unhappy, to say the least. Very unhappy. So started asking them, why are you not happy? And they say, your product is crap. It just doesn't work. And I said, what? Well, so many happy customers and you tell me it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And then after a lot of conversations with our salespeople on the one hand and our headhunters and recruiters on the other hand, we started realizing that these two markets were really totally different markets. Recruiters were looking for a needle in a haystack. They needed at the end to get one good candidates, that's it. And in order to satisfy their clients, they needed a list of 20 that they would tell you these are the best 20 out of the 500 I looked at, blah, blah. So all they needed is a list. They couldn't care less about phone numbers and email addresses because headhunters know how to get to people, that's not a problem. And people answer their phone calls, so that's not a problem. And so all they needed is to run the query, give me the CFO of software companies in the Boston area, bigger than 50 million. The list was, in good times, 50% correct. The other 50% were bogus people, bogus companies, doesn't matter. Why? Because when they look at this and say, oh, that's not a software company, that's stupid. They threw away all the stupid stuff. And they still stayed with enough names to make them happy. The fact that there were no phone numbers didn't bother them. And they were as happy as can be. We gave it to salespeople. And salespeople said, I have to make 100 phone calls a day. I call Libby, and a man answers me and he says, that's the wrong number. How did you get there? Okay. You call this company and they say, no, we are not that company. So after about 5, 10 phone calls, they say, this product is stupid. Why did we pay money for it? So there was a little problem. The little problem was that there were no phone numbers on the internet. There were no email addresses on the internet. So if we wanted phone numbers and internet and email addresses of people, we needed a very different source of information. So one day I talked to one of my salespeople, and he says, Yonatan, you have to see it. You have to see it. I said, okay. He shows me a product, and he says, well, I wanted to talk to Eyal, so I put Eyal, Levinson, and look, here is a phone number, and here's the email address. I said, wow, that's really cool. How do they get that? He says, oh yeah, I had to share with them my address book and my email box. I said, you did that? And he said, what do I care? You know, it's a company's email address. I don't care. But look at all the data I get. He said, I'm not worried about sharing all of this information with other people that you don't know who they are. I said, yeah, I know. So we built what's called the swapper. It's a long story, I won't bore you with that. It took us a few years to get enough people to adopt it so that we get enough data. And that's basically what all of our competitors afterwards were doing. Whether it's Apollo or Lucia or people numbers, I don't know, there are about 10 different competitors. All of them doing the same. Show me yours and I'll show you mine. That's about it. Okay? So, but it took us years to do, and meanwhile the company was in deep trouble. Literally in deep trouble. We didn't lose money because I made sure we never lose money, but we were not growing and we were not making money. Once we solved that problem, back in 2001, 2011, 2012, the company went through the roof, and the rest is history. What is jobs to be done? The theory is based on the idea that people buy products and services to accomplish specific jobs in their lives. So remember the stories I gave, right? So you need to understand why do they buy the product? What is really the reason they want? And what are the alternatives they have? With Roche, it was the problem with the alternative. With Zoom, it was we didn't understand what they're going to do with it. And they had totally two different uses. Now, these jobs can be defined in many, many terms. There's problem solving, like car got stuck, I have a back pain, I want to increase sales, blah, blah. Functional tasks, so things that have a function in their life, like house cleaning, we all love house cleaning, or manage inventory, like our customers at Roche, can be emotional needs. I want to gain respect, I'm walking with these in here so that when we make a video, it looks nice. There are social aspects. Okay? I want to dress for a party. I want to show that I'm successful. There are goals. Very, very broad range of reasons or jobs that I'm trying to do. So instead of focusing on the product or the customers, which is usually how people look at the world, okay? You look at the demographics of your customers or the firmographic of the customer, and you look at the product and you try to mesh the two. What jobs to be done said is don't do that. Shift the perspective to the job itself. What are they trying to accomplish? And it's about understanding what they try to do. So, and here is an insight that I came up with last week when I was working on that. Because all of this is very nice, but what do I do? And really what you need to do is start thinking in the context of market segments. If you remember, I was talking about it in one of the early lectures, that you can't conquer the world. So you have to choose a beachhead that will be the easiest for you to penetrate and where you can become profitable on that beachhead. To become profitable on the beachhead, obviously you would like to have high prices on that beachhead, right? Because selling for $1,000 is better than selling for $100, and selling for $100 is better than selling for $10. So you really want to find a place where people will pay you much more. So with this process that I'm going to show you, you have a tool that you can start thinking about how you segment the market to beachheads. Basically the same problem, basically, see the differences. Okay? And that's very, very powerful. So what I wanted to do is put this into 4 dimensions. So essentially, you look at the market that you are trying to address by 4 different dimensions. Number 1 is functional, which is what we talked about. What is a specific job customers want to do? But surprisingly, that's just 1 dimension. The other is contextual. In what context do they need it? We obviously don't need a product all the time. So there is a context, a specific context, like the people who drove to work. That was the context. They usually don't drink milkshakes, but when they need to go to work for half an hour, that's what they want to do. Okay? So the context is very, very important. Emotional. You will see in a moment why is that important. What are the emotion aspects involved in the job? And even in B2B, there are a lot of emotions involved. And the last item is social, which is what are the social aspects of fulfilling the job. So these are the 4 dimensions, and what we're going to do from now till the end of the lecture is use these 4 dimensions to analyze a lot of situations and see how it works. Because it's very, very powerful in figuring out the market. So I'll start with the most obvious of examples that you didn't even think about, right? It is kind of so stupid, but it will immediately show you that that's what we do in day-to-day. We use these 4 dimensions in day-to-day life all the time. So functional, talk about garments. So you have shirts, pants, skirts, dresses, underwear, bikini, pajamas, you name it, right? So we have names for garments. And they're very different from one another in our discussion. Right? The t-shirt is not like a dress function, right? Different things. That's number 1. Contextual. Obviously, you don't dress at work like you dress on the beach. Or when you go to a gala event, or you do skiing, right? Or when you exercise, or you're at a wedding. In each context, our garments look very, very different. I said it's a stupid example, but it just shows you how these 4 dimensions play with one another. And if you think that's only for garments, I'll show you later on that it works everywhere. Okay. Emotional. Who am I? Some people, their clothing is simple. I only go with green. I only go with pink. Somebody you all admire, Steve Jobs, only goes with black t-shirts, right? No purple. So that's who they are. Does it hide my whatever? Does it go well with my eyes? I have 4 girls. So I know that what goes with their eyes is very, very important. That's emotion. Social. Do I look impressive enough? Okay. Important, right? Do I look overdressed? I feel like an idiot. Everybody is coming with a t-shirt and I'm on this suit and I look at all of you. I feel like an idiot. And really, I can't believe it. So you start seeing these 4 dimensions on the most obvious of examples that you all don't even think about. It's just so obvious. But use that example as kind of your guiding principle when you think about what I was just talking about, to show you the complexity or the subtlety of these decisions. Okay, so let's go to real business. What is the job to be done for the item? This is a question I want to answer.
Playing music is functional.
What?
Functional playing music.
Music. What music? Listen. Right? You want to listen to music. What kind of music?
Music. Whatever.
Your music.
Whatever you like.
Whatever.
Custom.
Right? So, obviously. So if I give them music, they should be very happy. Okay, so let's look at the history. Because like everything else, there's always first movers. The first movers are usually not the people you know. That's another lesson that I will talk about many, many times during these lectures. The first movers usually lose. Why? Because they figure out the jobs to be done for the other people. That's why they lose. So the first one that came out and was a commercial success is this one, an MP3 player with 6 to 8 songs on the flash drive. And despite questionable reception and CBIT, anybody here was a CBIT? Oh, okay, interesting. So they sold 50,000 units at $200 each. Really great success. But this is really interesting. No matter how the Korean staff tried to explain what an MP3 player was, people didn't understand why they needed such a device. Because they could listen to music with CDs or cassettes. As simple as can be. If you are the innovator, nobody really understands why are you doing this stupid things. Why? All right, let's move on. So here are other first movers. In '98, there was a diamond Rio. That's the first picture on the top. Price $200. '99, compact personal jukebox. And 90. Give me a sweet. Rio port, and by 2001, the market was flooded. You don't know any of these. They're all dead. First. So iPod came. And look at the numbers, okay? 2001, I put those on sale, and they sold, I think, millions of iPods. So 50 million outputs by 2000. What's the difference? What jobs to be done in this? Can you guys figure out what's the job to be done that iPhone saw? Getting your music. Okay, what else? Mobility. What else?
Organizing all of your music.
Great. None of you said the other.
They have to download that music.
You're getting close. That's why I asked, what does the iPod do? You said listening to music, and all of you assume that it's obvious.
Give you an easy source to download from.
Where did they get the music before everybody? You know? Well, they exchange, they stole, I still remember people were stealing, remember Napster, right? And all of that stuff. But most people wanted a simple solution. I'm just gonna go to a store, click a button, and buy the song. That's it, what I want. The innovation and the genius of Steve Jobs was that he understood the jobs to be done. He went and negotiated the impossible. It was literally the impossible. To get all the music publishers, or most of them, and the rest of them joined very quickly later, to agree that every song is being sold for 99 cents. 99 cents. You go to iTunes, pick your credit card is charged with 99 cents. It was easy peasy, no questions asked, really simple. Nothing with technology. It is the negotiation with all the music publishers. Because that was the job people wanted. They wanted the music, not that it will be more, smaller or whatever. That's what they want. And you saw the difference. The moment you could get any music you wanted, it took off. And that's called, and you will hear about it a lot later on, the concept of an alias. So what happens in the market, and I'll later on give a lot of examples, the moment something becomes possible, then it opens up the door to many, many simple innovations. Simple in the sense everything is there. You just have to package it slightly different and solve a different job. That's all what you need. Sometimes the enabler is a business decision, and sometimes the enabler is technology, and sometimes it is foundation, whatever it is. But the enablers always allow you to take what became available and develop solutions that were impossible until then. So, what was the next logical step after the iTunes? Guys, are you asleep?
iPad.
iPad, no. In the music industry. What's the next?
iPhone. Spotify.
Spotify, exactly. Why do I need to buy anything? I just don't listen. I don't need to own it. I don't listen to it, right? Remember, jobs to be done. There's nothing for me to own a piece of music. What am I going to do with it? Eat it? Just don't listen to it, right? Spotify. So wait a minute. If we already understand streaming, why only that? Why don't we stream movies? Why don't we stream books? So you can start seeing the logic. Jobs to be done. And step by step, people start to understand, wait a minute, I don't really want to own music. I don't want to fill my house with books. I just want to read. That's all what I want. And usually what you have there are business decisions. Spotify had to negotiate hard with the music industry. Netflix is still fighting with the movie industry, right? These are the business decisions that do it. So the enablers are not always technology or disruptive stuff. Sometimes the disruption is negotiations with the players. So I promised you that 3 people will be able to come in here and entertain the public for a minute or two. Who wants to come?
I think Tal's son.
He's a little bit busy.
By the way, I'm going to talk about him later on. Seriously.
Who would like to introduce himself?
Anybody wants to introduce? Come.
I'm not going to be the only one, huh?
Doesn't matter. So you will.
Only do it in 1 minute.
1 minute. So my name is Omer Farbstein, and I'm here thanks to Beer.
I'm a consulting here and helping him to finish the design.
Standing here,
Right, exactly. And helping him finish the design of the Kimos project. Except of that, I was a yacht captain for many years, for big boats. And when I left the yachting industry, I opened my own company and starting developing and selling a unique machine for the yachting industry, which is a reverse osmosis water purification system that's designed for this specific industry. And since then, the company is going quite well, and today it's a profitable company. And
Yeah, we would let him talk in here if it wasn't. Thanks so much. Number two, come on. Anybody wants to introduce themselves?
Hi, my name is Danny. I'm together with my partner here. Entrepreneur of a few companies. Last one failed, and I'm here to explore the reasons it failed and make the next one succeed. I'm originally an engineer. My businesses were ranging from hard kits for kids or weddings to warehouse logistics projects. Right now I'm in IoT in the logistics domain, and I like creating stuff. Hopefully this time it'll be very profitable after hearing Yonatan.
Thank you.
So what I want to do now is give a few examples, take you through some interesting stories about jobs to be done. So IBM, the most venerated computer companies in the world. So back in the 40s, 1940s, there's a famous quote of who was the president at the time, Thomas Watson. I think there's a world market for maybe 5 computers, right? Why? Very easy. Nobody used computers before, so why do we need computers, right? So maybe 5 computers will do all the calculations we ever want, so we're all done, right? So jobs to be done, there wasn't. So if there's no job to be done, no need. Then came the mainframes, and IBM is flying high from the 60s to the 80s. And what I want to do is analyze along the 4 dimensions that I talked before, okay? Functional. So IBM positioned itself mainly where the money was, forget about the scientific side, as business administrative functions, okay? So whether it is accounting, whether it is inventory, anything that has to do with running a business, the numbers of running the business, that's what they did. And therefore the contextual, which is who are your customers, were big companies, mainly banks and Fortune 500. That was the market for IBM. Okay? Big, emotional, interesting. IBM really understood the emotional dimension. So their salespeople showed up like me. Blue shirt, right? Blue suit. Right, blue. It's called, Big Blue because everything was blue like the logo. And really they made very clear about their dress code. Very, very important. Second, they are blamed with inventing FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It turns out I checked on the internet and it's not them who invented it, but probably they brought it to perfection. What does it mean, fear, uncertainty, and doubt? They would sit with the CIO of the company, and the CIO would say, well, IBM is good, but you're twice as expensive as Amdahl or CDC, and I think you should give me a discount. And what would the salesman say? Yeah, but then just think about what would happen if this Amdahl machine that you never heard about breaks down. And the CEO asks, how come my customers cannot do any transaction in the last week? What would you answer him? I preferred Amdahl over IBM to save some money? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Worked phenomenally well for them. They control the market because it's not that IBM, think about what they did. It's not that IBM guarantees there will be no failure. That wasn't what they were saying. It is, are you going to be blamed for that? And if you are not going to be blamed for it, that's an easy decision. Right? Genius. When I talk about the 4 dimensions, and we talk about B2B, people think IBM is buying the product. No. In every one of your customers, you deal with a team, and they have emotions, and they have an ass to cover, and they have a job. The CFO or the purchasing agent, his or her job is to cut the price. That's their job. That's the only reason they negotiate with you. They are not responsible that the product will work. They are not responsible for everything. So if you understand the jobs to be done of every person in the company, you can be much more successful. I heard the trick of somebody, one salesman said, when he sits with the CFO or the purchasing agent, and the purchasing agent says, well, you know, you can do better than that. He says, show me how. And he says, well, you have to cut the price by $20,000. He says, absolutely, no problem. We deliver 5 things. Which of the 5 you don't need? Now, the purchasing agent obviously has no idea what the 5 things are because he's not responsible for it. And he says, well, no, just reduce the price. He says, I can't. If you don't have the budget, tell me what you don't want to buy. So the conversation goes in circles for about 10 minutes until the purchasing agent says, okay, fine, right? Because he has no power, but his job is to cut the price. That's his job. Okay, so that's the emotional. Social, that's really interesting. What they did also, IBM, was all the time telling people that this is such a strong competitive advantage to have a mainframe and their mainframe, that if they don't buy, then their competitors already bought it and they're going to eat their lunch. So IBM was a highly emotional, social, smart group of people. That's why they were so successful. By the way, the company that copied a lot of these things was Microsoft. Similar tactics. And what happened afterwards? History continues. So IBM, 1993, posted the largest loss until then, $8 billion loss. And what did they do? They hired a new CEO, and huge, huge surprise. Lou Gerstner comes from RJR Nabisco, selling cigarettes and cookies and biscuits. And before that, he was at American Express. His connection to computers was probably that he saw one in a movie or something like that, okay? And I remember, I was in the US at the time, there were gazillion articles everywhere. Are these guys out of their mind? Why are they bringing a CEO who has no knowledge, no experience about this very, very complicated technology? What do they think? So he turned IBM from a computer manufacturer to professional and managed services. What he did was, I remember that because there were interviews with him. And obviously, I remember it till today because I was so amused by the whole thing. He was asked, I saw it on TV, he was asked, he was sitting there and he was asked, so what's your vision for the company, right? Analysts like to ask that. What's your vision for the company? And he said, my vision for the company is to go and visit all my customers and ask them what they want. And they said, yeah, but vision. He says, I thought I said it. I'm going to go to all my customers and ask them what they need and what they want. And that's what he did. For a few months, he was traveling from customer to customer, from customer to customer. And he realized that they wanted essentially what they wanted before. They just wanted their operations to run smoothly. Couldn't care less whether it was an IBM computer, an Amdahl computer, or no computer. They just wanted their business to run smoothly. That's what they wanted. So he made a change. Instead of focusing on hardware and computers and mainframes and whatever, he says, we will take responsibility for running your operations. So IBM became the largest consulting operations group. That's still, and in 2023, they made $7.5 billion net profit on sales of $62 billion. So this is really a great example at a very large scale of jobs to be done. He took what the customers wanted to accomplish and stripped completely how to do it. So he separated between the how and the what. Says we don't need to do mainframes. We don't need to compete in the mainframes. They still do them. But their message to the market is we will take over your operations and we will run them smoothly. We will do that job for you. We will be your IT department. That's what they do today. Okay, so let's look at a similar example and see how well that worked. Okay? So I did it just because it was funny. So don't expect any great insights in here except that it's funny. So in 1983, a decade before, Steve Jobs, who was a young kid at the time, right, and very successful, hires John Scully from PepsiCo, right? Real computer company, PepsiCo, where John served as president from 77 to 83. Similar story, right? Let's bring somebody who really knows how to sell, bring them in here, and let's do some business. So he did. He increased the sales tenfold in 10 years, from $800 million to $8 billion in 1993. So he did the job. There are a lot of controversy whether he did the job or just that Apple was successful despite him. I won't go into that. Anybody who wants gossip is welcome to go and look at it. But he had major disagreements with Steve Jobs, so much so that he ousted him 2 years after he joined the company. So here's the founder bringing in a professional CEO and being kicked out of his own company. Huge, huge issue. So everything goes well until he was ousted. John Scully was ousted in 1993. And why? Because the company performance wasn't good. By 1996, the company was about to declare bankruptcy. And the board went back to Steve Jobs, who at the time built 2 or 3 companies, including Pixar, and said, maybe you would like to come back in here. And he said, absolutely, but I control everything, and that's it. So why did I bring that story? Just because it's funny. It's kind of the mirror image of the previous story, and I thought you would like to hear it. I talked about jobs to be done, jobs to be done, jobs to be done. You're tired of me. The question is, fine, how do you understand what is the job to be done? And I have to tell you, this is a really difficult problem. And it has 2 very big challenges. If you have a product or an idea that doesn't exist today, potential users don't really grasp what you want to say, regardless of how long you're going to talk and your hand waving and everything. It's just not clear to them what it is and why it should be done. I'll give you a very simple example. CRM. Okay? Obvious product to everybody here in this room. So I talk about Wash Intelligence System, 1985. We started the company and we wanted to have, because we were computer people, we said, okay, we need to understand what we're doing. There was no CRM at the time, but there was a product called ACT. No, Symantec bought it later. It was acquired by Symantec. You can tell, the layers of age in here by when I say a name and somebody smiles, well, he's at least that age, right? So yes, ACT was very, very successful at the time. There was a single computer running on a PC, basically Outlook, what you would today call Outlook, but that was at the time the product. And there was one big company at the time called Siebel, and nobody understood what they're doing. It was like, what? Why? Who? Took years, 20, 30 years before the market understood why CRM is important for your business. I'm just showing you how long it takes for a new concept to sink in and becomes an obvious and a must-have in the business. So that's the problem with products that don't exist. So when I went to, with Rush Intelligence Systems to my clients and showed them what we do, they said, yeah, great, but they didn't feel it's a must-have. They did feel it's a must-have to figure out their inventory in the trunks of people. For existing products, the problem is the opposite. It's not so simple to differentiate between the product and the job to be done. So the story of the milkshake is really, really interesting, mainly because Christensen was able to show it so clearly, the difference between, yeah, it's just a milkshake, to the job that people wanted it to fulfill. Okay? But honestly, for most normal people like you and me, it's not that simple to differentiate. It's just not. Because customers most times don't think in those terms. So how do you handle that? So what we need to do is ask all kinds of questions. What I'm going to give you now are the questions that I use and I ask many times. And again, this is not simple. Remember the intro I said, this is a very difficult thing to really figure out the job to be done. So the questions you want to ask as one, and the most important thing is don't talk about the product, which is virtually impossible for entrepreneurs. I want it to sink in, okay? Don't talk about your product. Virtually impossible for an entrepreneur. They're in love with what they do. It's great. It solves all the problem in the world. And you just have to buy it because it's so good. So to separate yourself from this grand admiration you have towards your product and just ask stupid questions like at Roche, if you only have $100,000, would you buy me? And they say no. It needs guts. It needs guts. But you better learn about it before you invest a penny in your product. Because if you are not the most important thing that they're going to spend money on, you want to know that. And there's a benefit to it. Because if you ask about this and you understand their needs, in most cases you will come up with some interesting solutions for their needs, okay? So how do they fulfill their needs today? What do they like about the current solutions? Again, another interesting psychological thing. When you ask people what you don't like, they feel that they're going to say bad things, so they don't say. But if you ask them, what do you like about what you do now? They will tell you, oh, it's great. I get in the morning, the first thing I do is clean my desk. I sit there, I have a whole stack of paper. I need to move from here to there. I feel like I'm going to fulfill all of that. This is a day's job. It's wonderful. It's just boring like hell, honestly. It's so boring. I'm falling asleep by 9 o'clock. But they start with the positive, and that gives them permission to start telling you the trouble. So I always ask the positive questions first. Invariably, they get to what bothers them. What else? What else? They get to what they don't like. And then they tell you what they don't like in big ways. Okay? But you have to really ask the question and show you're really interested. Okay? Why don't they like the current situation? So you say, why is it boring? She will explain why it's boring, or why it's tiring, or why it's error prone, or whatever it is that she's going to say. So the second set of questions is really, really important. Because many times when you ask about alternatives that they use or consider or tested, you will get a much better understanding of what they are trying to do. Because then they already spent time thinking about the job to be done because they're now trying something else, right? So you get two angles at your problem, and where they intersect is probably what the job to be done. So that's why it's so important. Try to really, really squeeze out of them. So did you try anything else? What else would you do? Many times they didn't even think about it, but when you ask them what you think about, you will get more information. Keep asking, why? 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 Most of you have kids, right? So it sounds familiar. And after, you go through the first few days of the why, you realize the kid is not trying to bother you. But every answer raises the next question of why, right? Well, why does the sun rise? Well, darling, the sun doesn't rise. The earth is spinning. Why? Oh, because it spins all the time. Why does it spin all the time, right? They keep asking questions. Do the same. Just keep asking why. And when you ask the why, go backwards in the chain of reasons and objectives. Okay? So that will allow you, I know it's gruesome, it's horrible, but it's very difficult to get definition of the job to be done in ways that will be meaningful. People don't think like that. They just don't. And for each step, do essentially the same questions I said before. What do they do today? What they like about the current situation, the alternatives, yada, yada. Every time you go one step backward, keep asking the questions. Not all customers will answer you, but it's important to do. And last but not least, all of you sit there and say, this guy is nuts. I'm not going to do that. It's impossible. Nobody will answer me. You're right. So this is not a multiple answer test. This is not an American test, as we call them. Okay, it's just a concept and a guidance. The moment you understand that the product and the job are not identical, they're two different things, start figuring out what they're trying to accomplish. And ask many questions until they throw you out or until it becomes awkward or whatever it is. So you don't have to do this the way I described. But you really want to make sure that you separate the product from the job. What I'm going to show you soon is a lot of examples of what happens. A few more things before I go to the examples that are important about jobs to be done. In many companies, they already have customers. They sell them something else, so they talk to them. So they can just talk to them. Easy. That's what happened to me at Roche. Okay, I already had customer. I asked this question, and I got an answer I didn't like, but I got an answer. Okay. Second is when you already have an idea that you can show, like Kimos. So you have something to show, people can understand, people can start responding. Okay? Third, I keep talking about branding first, right? So you want to start talking about something in the area of the problem you think you're trying to solve. You start getting people interested and you have a chance to talk to them. Okay? So once you have a chance to talk to them, you start hearing a lot of things. And actually, in reality, people like to talk. That's the funny thing. Okay? If they don't feel you're trying to sell them something, and you give them a real chance to kill something else, they really enjoy that. What you say is stupid, you don't understand what you're doing, they really like saying that, because they make them important. So you will hear. If you are willing to listen, you will hear. When, as much as I try to simplify business, give you a recipe, 2 cups of sugar, a little bit of oil, and mix and put it in the oven. It doesn't work like that. But the concepts are the same. So juries are stable over time. That's really interesting. So what this methodology does, it says the solution might evolve or might change over time, but the problem remains the same. Computers is a great example. Okay? It was mainframes. That was the solution. Then came mini computers. And mini computers were basically mini mainframes, right? So they did about the same thing. Then came client server and workstations. Basically did the same thing. Then came PCs and changed the world. When did the PCs change the world? When they started to have a local area network. And suddenly everybody in the company had a computer on their desk that did a lot of things. So the job remained the same. It just, as technology evolved and changed, the solutions evolved and changed, but the problem was the same problem. How do I use computing in order to improve my business. So I'll give you another example. When I came to the US back in 1989, it was in the middle of one of those slowdowns in the economy. And this one was very, very different than the previous ones. Because the previous one, when there was a slowdown, the people who paid the price were the blue-collar workers. They lost the job. Middle management and top management remained in place, kept their nice salaries and everything, but the blue-collar workers who usually worked on a daily and hourly basis, they lost their job. 1989, or around that area, was very, very different. Mid-level management lost their job. And the answer to that, why did that happen, was actually very surprising. Remember, I'm talking now about late 80s, early 90s, okay? That's 40 years after computers were introduced. And they looked at the efficiency gains in the industry with these billions and billions of dollars of investment, and they didn't see any efficiency. So it was the same cost to produce something as it was 40 years before, but they had computers, they had software. What's going on? So this question was looming very hard over the computer industry. Why you can't measure the efficiencies? But when the PCs and the local area networks started penetrating big businesses, suddenly there was a whole layer of people that was totally irrelevant anymore. The CEO can send an email to the entire company with a push of a button. Why do I need people shuffling paper back and forth? There's no need for them. So the PCs, almost in one swoop, liberated the organization, really liberated the organization. And the efficiencies jumped. That means people lost their job. Okay, so you can see here a good example of that. The job is solution agnostic, as I said before. So you don't really care whether it's a mainframe, a mini computer, or client server, or whatever it is. It does the same job at the end of the day. And because of that, actually, the PCs became more and more sophisticated because they were taking the jobs of the mainframe and became more sophisticated. That we talked about, understand the job deeply to create better solution. We talked about that. But the last point is really critical. What we see in here, we talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and you see a lot of them coming with a solution looking for a problem, literally. Oh, I have this great technology, I have this great thing, everybody will want it. No, they're a little bit more sophisticated. They don't say it this way. They come with some bogus idea. But the reality of it, it's a solution looking for a problem. The reason is they assume that that's what investors want to hear, so they invent it. But in reality, a problem looking for a solution is far more stable and profitable and doable than that. And the interesting thing, many times to solve the problem is fairly easy. And people feel that unless they have some disruptive technology, then they're not worth anything, which is total bullshit. Find a problem, write a piece of code in 10 minutes, create the emotions you need to create, and make money. And we'll talk about it in a moment, okay? Don't look for complicated solutions to problems that don't exist. Take problems that exist, find simple solutions. Much more profitable. Okay, you saw that in the last presentation. My favorite example is about watches. So what's the market segmentation in here? So we'll use the 4 dimensions we talked before. So Rolex, clearly, status symbol. Okay? You can go to the Knesset and see how it works there in status symbol. Right? Okay, emotional. It's fashion, I want to show style, I'm sophisticated. Okay. Gadget lovers, maybe some functionality. And this is me. I want to know what time it is. That's the only thing I care about. Right? So it's very functional. It's timekeeping. That's what it does. Solved my problem. A job to be done. What time is it? 5. Done. Okay. Now the question is, how do you make a Rolex into a status symbol? Any ideas? How do you make a Rolex into a status symbol? Waiting list. Great. What else? High price. What else? Unique. What else? What? Influencers. What else?
Sponsoring one of the biggest yacht racing in the world.
Okay, so you answered most of it. High price, right? Limited availability. This is really critical. If everybody can buy it, it's not a status symbol. So limited availability. And high bars to be accepted to the waiting list. You can't just go to a store and say, I want to buy a Rolex. What's your name? Who are you? I haven't seen you before. I don't know who you are. Why don't you buy something, for $500 and next month buy something for $1,000 and I'll see you are serious. Then I'll put you on the waiting list. Side effects. Really interesting, because what I want to show you, and that's why I'm doing this exercise, the product changes completely. You see what they sell now. They don't sell watches anymore. They sell something else, and they sell something else. It's a product. What?
What do they say? Placing the lines?
Yes. It's an emotional purchase. So you need to create the emotion, okay? You need to create the emotion. It doesn't come from nowhere. They work hard on it, and I'll show you in a moment, okay? What are the side effects? Well, if I can't buy the watch from the official resellers, then I'll buy it anyway because I need to have a Rolex. So there's a second-hand market. Now, I have an official Rolex. I have 2 because I'm a good client. I was twice on. And by the way, I know people who have 3 of them because they bought it. And now I can sell it in the second-hand market for twice the price. But if it is twice the price, then it's an investment. So people start looking at Rolex and other high-end watches as an investment that appreciates in time. Okay, and the last item is this is collector items. Because it's hard to get, it's expensive, it becomes collector item. Okay? So you see the transition from a watch to something else completely. And the something else completely is very carefully created. It's not a mistake. So I want you to understand, when I talk about jobs to be done, it changes the product. And we will see it in a moment. The product changes based on that. It's not the same product anymore. So if you want to have limited supply, I found the source that these are all high-end watches. Honest to God, I have no idea what they are and how much they cost. But I found this list of how much they produce. So actually, Rolex produces relatively a large number of them compared to Patek Philippe, which is 68,000, Breitling with 170, Omega with 500, and so forth. Right? So you see they keep production low to create a shortage in the market and waiting lists. Remember last time I showed you this horrible thing that you can rent a TV and pay, instead of paying $600, you will pay $2,400. And I came up with one use at the time, which was very poor neighborhoods. But last night when I was working on it, I thought that actually there are some, let's call it, fair uses of this thing. And I'm challenging you. What do you think? Who else might want to rent a TV instead of buying a TV? Businesses. Most of them, the CFO will say you're out of your mind. But there are some cases. Remember the contextual. In some context, it makes sense to rent. You said CeBIT, right? You went to CeBIT, and you wanted to bring your TV, and they said, no, you can't. Right? You have to rent it from us, and it's going to cost you $100 a day to rent a TV. So yes, when you go to trade shows, they will figure out already that anything you want to put into the showroom is highly monitored, right? So people do rent TVs when they go on a tour and they need a TV in every city they arrive. They're not going to schlep a TV with them. It's too expensive. They rent them and other people. So that's what I came up with. Maybe there are more. I don't know. But let's move on. Airline tickets, segmentation. Remember what I'm trying to tell you now. The same product, packaged differently. So we all know business class is 2 to 3 times the price of coach. I'm now not talking about overseas. I'm talking about coast to coast, or a lot of the, most of the traffic is in the US. So you're not having this reclining that you can sleep. It's just business class. Still cost about 2 to 3 times. Why? So let's analyze it. Functional. You have to go from city A to city B on the same plane. They're going to leave at the same moment and arrive at the same moment. I can assure you that. So that's not the difference. Contextual. Most of business class is business travel. Business travel, who pays? Not me. Not me. Company pays. If the company pays, then I get better service, better seats. I stand at the front of the line. I get the flight attendant to call me by my name.
An extra suitcase.
Extra suitcase, everything, right? So I don't pay. That's good. And social. All right, Zoom, right? If you are a VP level, you can go business. Yes, it's a status symbol in companies. You have to be at a certain level to get the business class. And who is making money? The airlines. You see here how jobs to be done becomes a lot more interesting because functional is the same. You live on the same plane, same minute, and arrive at the same city at the same minute. Same exact flight. But by creating all of these artificial things, they were able to get a lot more money. And the artificial things are, some of it is pleasure, and some of it is just status symbol, and some of it is I don't pay for it, so give it to me. Let's give you more examples. Kimos. Remember we talked about it? Hi, I'm abusing, not just using you, I'm abusing you, okay? So here it is. It's basically a thermos with batteries that can heat the water in 3 minutes and boil them to 100 degrees. That's what it is. That's the product. So when we were talking about it, we said, let's analyze it by these 4 dimensions, right? Contextual, functional, emotional, and social. So let's look at it. So let's pick a market segment. Mothers to small babies, right? I'll explain to you why in a moment. And you will realize that I'm right. Okay? Contextual, mothers outside of their homes who need to prepare a bottle of formula for their babies. Okay? So remember, she's not at home, she's somewhere else, she's with the baby, she needs to prepare a formula. You want to boil the water to 100 degrees. You sterilize the water fast, right? So that's the function. You want to sterilize the water. You don't want hot water. You want to sterilize the water. Emotional. Aha, that's why it's the mother. See? Oh, I can't infect my baby with unsterilized water. The father says, what? But the mother says, don't even think about doing it with unsterilized water, right?
The first time.
You know, you don't get to the second without the first, so there are plenty of first ones. Social. Well, you can get boiled water somewhere else, but it's uncomfortable to ask strangers for boiled water, right? So the social code says, you want to be in a position where you can get boiled water by yourself without going to anybody else. So you start seeing the differences, okay? So we were not the only smart people, as we showed you before. And look at several things that happened in here. This Kimos one was transformed. It doesn't look like it used to look. Suddenly we see these nipples and the bottles, right? And it's called the Amber Baby Bottle System. It has a different name. Same product, basically, okay? But metamorphosed to something else. It's now the baby bottle system.
It's a mother, because it's a mother, you can pay $400. If it's a father, it's just $100.
Exactly. Thank you so much. What do you mean? My baby is not worth $400? Are you nuts? So if we want to now promote this product, okay, so I'm taking you now, we saw the packaging, right? The packaging completely changed. The price completely changed. But a lot of other things start to change as well. So we want to create content on the dangers of iron-boiled water. God forbid if you made the formula. What are you laughing? Talk to your wife.
I put the bottles in the dishwasher. It's fine.
That's the third one.
And the first one as well.
Okay. You're not married to my wife. So you really want to start creating FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? That's what you want to create, that mothers would not even dare thinking about putting their babies at risk. So if you collect all the cases where babies were hospitalized because they got some infection and whatever, doesn't matter that they got out of the hospital after 2 hours, you have the case. You want to publish it in groups of new mothers. So suddenly, where you put this information is very different. You want to position the product as the ideal present for the birth of a new baby. Remember, there's a new baby, you have to buy a present. And how many times can you buy, the garments? So $400, and that's just the right price for this present. So what I wanted to show you in here is by doing, jobs to be done and thinking about it not as a thermos that can boil water, but as a solution to something, as a job, the whole thing changes, completely changes. Okay? All right. So let's look at travelers to exotic countries. Same issue, right? Same bottle, same everything. But this time we're going to position it differently. So we have travelers to go to India, Congo, Mozambique, right? And they need to boil the drinking water. But their problem is slightly different. Okay? They want to still do the same thing, boil the water. But the emotion is different. They don't want to get sick in a foreign country. Because a foreign country, you don't know their medical system, you don't want to run to a doctor in India, you're afraid he might take your kidney, so you want to avoid any contact with them. And you don't always trust the bottled water, because the fact that it's in a bottle and it has a screw doesn't matter. Okay? And in general, it's not always available. In social, you're uncomfortable to ask strangers who might not even speak English for boiled water. It's just, so you have different set of issues, same solution, same product. But how are we going to package it? Not with nipples, right? Hopefully. So you want probably to add to it a travel bag, okay? You want to put an international power adapter, okay? And you might even want to add a battery, outside battery. Why? Because they are traveling. They might not have access to electricity on that day. So you start seeing again, it's the same stupid product. Sorry, didn't mean anything, okay? All right? But you see that the moment you look at a different job, you look at a different product. You package it differently, you price it differently. I don't think that people will pay $400 for that one, but maybe. Okay? So, there are other things. This is your homework. It's fun. think about other markets and try to build the products around it. Okay? All right, I have 10 more minutes to percolate you, boil you. 9. So I put a question. Does a company need to develop a new disruptive technology in order to build fast-growing, profitable, successful company? You know my answer, right? So this is, but let's look at it differently. What made the following companies successful? Don't trust me. Microsoft. Can you mention some big technological advancement that they did until they became big? No. They did something even smarter. They didn't have an operating system. They didn't have an operating system, but they had a really smart businessman.
They copied it very wrongly.
No, they got a very smart businessman who understood that IBM doesn't know what they're doing. And he offered them a solution called DOS, and he bought it from this guy for, I don't know, $20,000 or whatever. I don't remember the story. And this was a lousy operating system, but IBM couldn't care because they thought this whole thing is a toy. The rest is history. Remember again what I talked about Steve Jobs negotiating to get all the songs, for 99 cents. The innovation was the deal. The innovation was the job to be done. The innovation was not a technology. Apple, I described the iPod, right? The innovation was 99 cents per song, and you can have any song you want. Facebook, any great technology that you think about? Twitter, great technologies, disruptive, whatever. I'll give you one after the other. Amazon. I haven't heard anybody jumping yet. NVIDIA. Now let's take NVIDIA, okay? Technology, right? But if you look back a few years, then every screen has an NVIDIA processor because all the screen work with vector processing. Those of you who don't know what vector processing, come to me after I do it. I'll explain to you. Basically multiplying two sets of numbers very quickly. That's it. So they built a processor that does that. Turns out that AI does exactly that. So suddenly, some obscure technology that was in every screen on Earth became very hot, and they wanted to build servers with the same technology, and they had the chip. So their success is actually more luck than anything, and they were there and they knew what to do with it, so kudos to them.
Also Bitcoin, not only AI. Bitcoin as well.
Right. Same vector processor, basically. I used it in the Army, God knows when, many years ago. Salesforce, any technologies that you think about? No? Oracle, LinkedIn, Airbnb, Waze. Just look at the list of all the companies you know, and none of them have any disruptive technology. None. None. Make you think. Okay. Jobs to be done, combined with so many new technologies, offer plenty of opportunities to improve existing processes. So let me show you. Yeah, I know. So I call these new technologies enablers because suddenly when it exists and it's available, it's kind of a waste not to use it to create a new solution for something. Speech to text. I said that this time the AI revolution works, right? So speech to text was an unsolved problem. It's now right here, we do it. I'll even show you more. Translation. So we combined speech to text with translation, and these people there get my speech in Hebrew in real time. Literally, at this moment, okay? They hear my speech in Hebrew. So here it is, translation, down on the spot, available today for no money. Now, This is a technology. This is a jobs to be done. So if you find the area where they need this translation and are willing to pay for, and you package it for mothers who care about with the doctors in China and whatever, suddenly it worth a lot of money. So that's where the smarts is. Can you use all of these technologies in areas where you can make money? Face recognition. I think I told you the story about the guy. Did I? There was a guy who decided that face recognition is now fairly mature. So he basically canvassed from LinkedIn and Facebook pictures of people, and he knew their name, and he knew all the information that was on Facebook and LinkedIn. And suddenly, he had a face recognition system of hundreds of millions of people around the world. So if I walk into a store, he can tell the store owner who I am and what do I do and everything. Right on the spot. Simple. That didn't have to do anything, basically. Just scrape LinkedIn, scrape Facebook and some others. Twitter also has. And that's it, done. So he started getting a lot of heat from privacy, and so he sold mainly to police and more reputable uses. But I'm just showing you how simple the technology is. Picture recognition. You use your Google Photos and you type in, well, I don't remember a number of my car. For whatever reason, I can't remember it. So whenever people ask me what the number, I go to Google Photos and I write Lexus and I get my car that I took a picture, so I see the number. It works. It just works. ChatGPT. So we all think about ChatGPT as something that gives us answers, but we miss the point. ChatGPT understands your question, which is far more important than giving you the answer. Far more important. Because I can start talking to my TV and say, remember the movie we saw yesterday? I don't remember the name of the main actors. Do you have movies with the same main actors? And he will give me movies with the same main actor. Right? I can talk to him. Nothing that I just said is complicated. We have speech to text, we have ChatGPT understanding, everything is done. Okay? I'm working with a company that they work with customers who have many, many retail locations. Each location has a different rental agreement. And they need to manage, I don't know, hundreds of retail locations, each with a different rental policy, a rental agreement. And they want to extract a lot of information from the rental agreements, like the space, the dates, the price per meter, whatever it is. They do it manually, so they do only 3 or 4 parameters, but there are maybe 20 of them. They developed a system that would take all of these 20, put them in a database, and allow a few queries and so forth. Here's a great example. 3D printing. You're all aware of it. How many people build jobs to be done around it? I know of one, but it wasn't for business. He built like gloves for people with a problem in their hand. So each glove was specially done for each hand, and did it with a 3D. Drones. I think drones are underused today. So here's an example I just come out of my mind. If you are a city, you want to control all the building permits. People build on their roof, close balconies, build a shed in the garden. You want to catch all of that. What's easier than having a drone once a week going around the city, comparing last week with this week, and telling you who is doing what? So, right on the time. You have to.
Thank you.
So again, this is what we do, and you're all welcome to join us. We take off for July. And so this is what the lectures will. August 11. So you can rest. Meanwhile, I want you to solve a lot of jobs to be done. And if you are bored, we have work at my home, gardening, cleaning, everything. So thank you so much.